The struggle for human rights can be traced back to ancient history. And though much progress has been made throughout the centuries, the battle for human rights continues to be fought around the world, both literally and politically.
For most people, when they think about human rights, I think they often associate with other countries, particularly conflict zones. They see on television, they read, they hear about violations of human beings that defy most of our imagination. We need to be asking ourselves and those around us every day, what about where I live?
Whether the rights in question are civil, political, social, or economic, experts agree that awareness is a key factor in developing and maintaining human rights.
I believe that given the widespread human rights violations that have occurred in different parts of the world, when we reflect back on past events as well as current events, it's fundamental that human rights education is used as a vehicle to increase awareness.
Much of the denial of rights that goes on is systemic. And so it becomes really important to work with people to understand that you can't leave our laws as words on paper. You cannot allow people to deny other people's rights, or even just to ignore them, just to passively let bad things happen to other people without this being challenged. And education is what changes hearts and minds.
Looking toward the future, individuals, organizations, and governments are working to improve human rights education and awareness.
We felt very strongly that Canadian kids needed to have a place to go in Canada that talked about their stories and talked about global issues and global human rights issues in history from a Canadian perspective. When we found out that no such place exists in Canada, the solution clearly was that we would have to build such an entity, and that was really the genesis for the museum.
The Canadian Museum for Human Rights was created by the Government of Canada in 2008 as Canada's 5th national museum. It is also the first national museum outside of our national capital, and it's mandated by the government to actually reach out to Canadians, to get Canadians and others, visitors, to engage in dialogue around human rights and to inspire action.
Poised to become the first national museum of its kind, the Canadian Museum for Human Rights has a complex message to convey.
Our intention is to give people the opportunity to understand rights better, to see what their responsibilities are, and then to realize that each one of us can be a human rights star in and of ourselves. We don't have to be John Kennedy. We don't have to be Nelson Mandela. We don't have to be Pierre Trudeau. We can just be ourselves, and by doing the right thing at the right time, we can be a human rights star and take responsibility for a situation.
What we want in terms of the visitor experience is for all the visitors, first of all, to feel that this museum speaks to them and that they feel welcomed in it. But at the end of the day, we want each visitor to come away understanding that they have a personal responsibility for the protection and advancement of human rights in their own countries, in their own backyards, and around the world.
Envisioned as a world-class international institution for human rights education, the museum exhibits will encompass a wide range of issues with a special focus on equipping young people to become human rights leaders and advocates.
It's a real opportunity to have a discussion that doesn't exist already. And so we think it's going to be absolutely essential, not only for Canada, but for the world. It's going to draw the attention of young people around the planet, and we'd really like to see people get involved.
This groundbreaking project was initiated by the Asper Foundation in 2003 and has since garnered support from the surrounding community and Canada as a whole.
When we started talking about this idea to the government leaders, and we talked to many human rights groups to gauge their interest, including, of course, many Aboriginal groups for whom human rights issues today still are very important. We were greeted with relief, with gratitude, with joy. We got only great responses.
Scheduled to be completed in 2012, the museum will be located in Winnipeg, but Canadians hope that it will spark an international dialogue, inspiring people of all nations to combat oppression and work together toward a brighter future.
This museum, through research, through education, is never going to stop looking for the truth, asking the tough questions, and creating a space, a center for dialogue.
The Canadian Museum for Human Rights is an opportunity to really change our social structures, to really make a difference in the world. We believe that the exhibits that we have will tell important stories of the past, but more importantly, will inspire people to be better for themselves and for others in the future.
Help educate the next generation on the importance of human rights. Help write the story. Support the Canadian Museum for Human Rights.